All right, hello again, everyone. Welcome to 1-800-Accountants Facebook Live series on navigating some of these relatively newer tax situations that you might find yourself bumping into this year as you calculate your income taxes and your small business taxes. 1-800-Accountant, just quickly, we're the nation's leading virtual accounting services provider. Really, there's so much more that we offer on top of accounting. Our technology-based, people-led service can take care of all your backroom tasks like bookkeeping, tax preparation, payroll, so much more. We'll even get you set up and running as an official business for $0. You'll only pay the filing fees that your specific state requires. We make it quick, we make it easy, and we'll even throw in a personalized tax savings analysis. One of the big advantages to using an accountant to file your entity formation is that accountants set you up for long-term tax savings. We don't just slap together a binder of your official documents and send you on your way with a bill. We're going to set you up with the right framework to minimize your tax burden year after year. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Gary Milkwick. He's our Chief Product Officer here at 1-800-Accountant. Gary, it's nice to have you with us again. Welcome back.
Thanks, Travis. Great to be here.
I'm going to start off today just with some basic conversation here while we let people kind of file in and get situated. So let's start off with kind of some of these basics. We've been chatting a little bit here before we started the live stream. Explain to those who might just be popping in to see what's going on, what is an NFT and how does this work?
So an NFT is a non-fungible token. Last week, we obviously talked about cryptocurrency, and it's closely related to cryptocurrency because a lot of the first investors in these NFTs are crypto investors, and a lot of NFTs are purchased using cryptocurrency. So a non-fungible token, there's fungible assets and non-fungible assets. A fungible asset is one that's uniform, homogeneous. So, for example, dollar bills, they all look the same. They're all the same. So it's a fungible asset. So a non-fungible token is a unique token stored on the blockchain that basically signifies your ownership or represents your ownership of a particular asset that's unique on the blockchain.
Okay. I think I'm starting to grasp it a little bit here. It's what's preventing someone from buying an NFT and duplicating it and selling more?
Yeah, I mean, you can do that, but the good thing about NFTs is the ownership is stored on a blockchain. So for example, right now, most of them are on the Ethereum blockchain. Like a lot of crypto art is on the Ethereum blockchain. A lot of people here may have heard of NBA Top Shot. It's been in the press recently. Some of their NFTs have been selling for very high dollar amounts. That's on the Flow blockchain. So, there's a joke kind of in the NFT circle saying, "Oh, well, what about right click and save?" If you right click and save an image or something, or it'd be the same as having a fake print of an artist. You could easily go out to a printer and take a print from a famous artist and make a fake copy, but there's not that, it's not authentic. And on the blockchain, even more so than traditional art, for example, you can show on the blockchain that it's stamped as issued by the artist and that you can see the ownership of that forever.
Sure. And thinking about taking a work of art to a print shop and having them printed. There is a lot of a lot of printers won't print copyrighted works. Are there those types of protections on your NFTs artwork as well?
Well, honestly, you don't even need those types of protections because it's already on the blockchain. It's easily verifiable on the blockchain. And a lot of the platforms will have verified accounts for artists, for example. On Twitter does the same thing. If you get large enough following on Twitter, for example, they'll verify your identity to make sure that you're right. If I'm George Clooney, for example, I'm the real George Clooney Twitter account. I'm not a fake. Yeah, the platforms do that same type of thing. Okay.
Looks like Gary's internet might be taking a little bit of a dip here while we wait for Gary to come back and be live again. I would like to remind you that when he is back, he's going to be able to take your questions. So if you have a question related to NFTs and the trading, the tax implications, please just add it below in the comments, and we will definitely make sure Gary is able to ask those questions or answer those questions. He'll have those answers for you. Let's see. It looks like he is still frozen. I am going to take just a moment here. Actually, what I'm going to do, while we get this figured out, I'm hearing Gary calling back in. Next week, Gary's going to join us again, and we're going to be talking about the NCAA's name, image, likeness. This is something that assigned guest one. There we go. I believe Gary is back now. But next week, again, we're going to be talking about the NCAA's name, image, likeness rule change. And this has the possibility of generating a lot of income for a lot of people who have not had that ability before. And we're going to talk about those implications. So, Gary, are we back?
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure what happened. It didn't look like my internet. It looks fine, but sorry about that. Did I come through with the rest of the answer for that?
We got a little bit of it. Yeah.
Okay.
I honestly panicked a little bit when you froze up, and I forgot where you were and what question we were talking about. So I believe we were talking about the ability to print, and you were talking about how the works are verified on the blockchain.
Yeah. So the chain of title, so to speak, is easily verifiable on the blockchain. So it actually eliminates any of the issues that you can have with counterfeiting, because in the traditional art world, for example, because from issuance on through every single owner for the rest of time, you can see that address has been recorded on the blockchain, and it's super easily verifiable.
Sure. So let's talk. How long have NFTs kind of been a thing? We've definitely heard a lot more about them this past year, but how long have they actually been out and in existence and on the market?
Basically, I mean, not long after the blockchains started coming out, did NFTs come out. I mean, they like you said, I'd say the last 3 years they've kind of been around in some form. I mean, the crypto punks, for example, or the crypto kitties, people probably heard of those, right when blockchains started coming out. Those are some of the originals. Crypto punks now. I think it was MasterCard recently bought a crypto punk that was in the news for, bought it for over $100,000. So they've been around for a few years, but just recently, it got a lot of people's attention when an artist named Beeple sold a work for, I think it was $69 million at one of the auction houses in February or March of this year. So yeah, this year has seen an explosion.
And I think there were transactions like this that people heard about and knew about before, but they didn't associate the term non-fungible tokens. And with that, I want to bring up the Wu-Tang Clan album. Everyone thought it was very weird that they had created this album and they auctioned it off, and one person bought it and one person owned that album.
Right.
Was that maybe possibly the first major NFT transaction? It just wasn't billed on NFT.
So, yeah, it's that story is really interesting. So it had the same idea of an NFT in the scarcity of it, right? So the Wu-Tang, it was actually, at first it wasn't an NFT, right? They just produced a physical album that they produced one copy of. They didn't release any of the music anywhere else, and they sold it to an individual. What was it? Martin Shkreli. I think that year that he bought it, he was voted most hated person in America or something.
It was an interesting year for him.
Yeah, for jacking up prices on prescription drugs for the pharmaceutical company he owned. He ended up going to jail later.
Right.
So yeah, with the Wu-Tang album, So once he was in prison, he needed to liquidate assets to cover some of his bills
Right.
and legal fees and all that good stuff. And so he found a potential buyer for this album, and it was a group who was into NFTs. And so they said, well, not only are we going to buy this album, but we're going to create an NFT that represents ownership in this album.
Okay.
So who knows how that's going to work, or if those people will maybe get to listen to the album in
Right.
a secluded location or something.
Well,
But the idea is scarcity, right?
right.
To make it a scarce asset.
And what I've seen about this story is the group who purchased it is planning to hold smaller scale listening parties to
Yeah.
I think raise funds for charities and things and certain groups. So
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of interesting. Is there a limit on how many people you can share
Yeah, I'm
access
not
to
sure.
it?
Well, I think when Wu-Tang Clan created the album, they did have an agreement that the initial buyer had to sign, and then when he decided to resell it, this group also, is going to honor whatever. I
Okay.
don't know that that's all publicly known, but
Right.
yeah, the idea was that it's supposed to be a very small number of people. I don't know what the limit is,
Right.
but yeah, you're right. It's to keep it scarce and
Yeah.
super interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I'm going to be looking out for one of those parties in my area. 'Cause I'd love to hear it just for the the interesting nature of how that album's history. I think it would be
Well,
it'd be fun.
it's really interesting how NFTs can be used to represent um, basically access to real life events and things.
Hmm.
So that's a great example of owning an NFT. So you own, quote unquote, a piece of this physical asset, and it gives you access, most likely, I'm assuming, to at some point in the future actually hear the music. There are all sorts of pieces of art and tokens and things you can purchase that are NFTs now that give you access to real life events.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a big portion of NFTs called profile pictures, for example. So the whole idea, like, it's like the CryptoPunk thing. So if you own a CryptoPunk, it's like a status symbol to be able to use
Okay.
that as your Twitter profile picture, for example. So it's the same type of thing with other profile picture projects where you can use it for your Twitter, but it also will then give you access to a certain club or something. So
Right.
they're starting to link some of these ownerships of these tokens to events and things in real. And the NFT New York City is going on this coming week, and if you own certain NFTs, you can go to certain parties and meet certain people in the NFT world. That if you don't have those NFTs, you're not invited.
Right.
So it's really interesting, some of the things that people are
Yeah.
doing now to have real life utility, not just, okay, I'm going to look at a nice piece of art.
Right. Yeah. It's fascinating. It really is fascinating. So how does one go about finding an NFT that they want to purchase? Is it
Yeah, the easiest way to do it is to go on to one of the gateways. There are a bunch of gateways, platforms that are out there. OpenSea is probably the largest. Somewhat difficult to navigate because there's just so much stuff out there, and if you don't really know what you're looking for, it can be difficult. There are other sites that are more curated, like Nifty Gateway, which is actually partially owned by a company started by the Winklevoss twins, who were, if you watch the movie about Facebook, you know who they are. So they own a website called Nifty Gateway. That's actually how I got into it initially, and it was kind of like easy to use and easy to see what I liked, and it was super interesting. There's a ton of them though. There's super rare. There's rareable. There are a bunch of gateways and platforms that you can get on to kind of check out what's out there and see what you like. And it's really interesting. There's whole communities around this stuff. You can find a few artists that you like, follow them on Twitter, find influencers. They have Discord channels set up. I'm a member of probably 30 or 40 Discord channels of
Mm-hmm.
NFT artists and NFT collectors, and that's kind of how I've gotten a lot of information about this stuff.
And what's the risk involved with an NFT? Who should be buying these and who should be staying away?
Well, yeah, like with anything, there's a lot of risk, and maybe more risk with these than traditional investments. I would definitely not advise people to put their life savings into this type of thing. The way I kind of think of it is how much money would I be willing to invest in art or
Right.
baseball cards or any sort of collectibles? That's the type of money you should put into something like this, at least at first, until you really know what you're doing, know how the market's swing. I mean, there are huge swings, just like with cryptocurrency. There's huge swings in the NFT markets. In May and June, I started collecting NFTs, for example, in February and March of this year. And then in May and June, there was a big crash. I was like, oh man,
Right.
this doesn't look great. But, just like with the stock market, I personally think the NFT market's going to go up over time. So I actually bought a lot of stuff in May and June. And then when cryptocurrency rebounded, NFT market rebounded as well. There's definitely a correlation there because a lot of people buying NFTs are heavily invested in cryptocurrency. So
Right.
as cryptocurrency increased, the NFT market increased as well. And I just don't see it decreasing in the long term, but I wouldn't encourage people to drop a big chunk of their net worth into it or anything. It's something interesting and fun. I would go in tread lightly and
Mm-hmm.
go in until you're really comfortable with it and feel like you understand it. I mean, I've spent hours and hours and hours like learning about this stuff and getting into the community. But that's another good thing about the market is that the NFT community is really willing to help. So you can get on some of these Discord channels, and there's people who are willing to help new people. So I would recommend doing that as well.
That's awesome. We have a question. I'm going to try this for the first time here. I'm going to do this. Ellen has a question. If I only purchased an NFT this year, do I owe any taxes on it? So I think this question is, if I just bought it, I still own it. I didn't sell it. Is there
Yeah,
taxes on that?
no, if you bought it, it's just like buying any other asset. It's like buying a house or buying a stock. Anything you buy is it's just the way the IRS looks at that. You're trading an asset cash for another asset,
Okay.
an NFT. So just purchasing it does not make you have any sort of tax liability or anything like that.
Okay. And so I guess with that, we follow up with how exactly are they taxed? Is it a capital gains tax rate, like similar to crypto, or
It's
is it?
Yeah, it's very similar to art actually. So it is capital gains when you sell it. It's not ordinary income, but because it's considered a collectible, and let me preface this by saying the IRS has not issued any sort of guidance about NFTs or how they're going to be viewed or anything like that. Accountants are assuming that they're going to be classified as collectibles because they fit most of the definitions. It is interesting though because collectibles, as defined by the IRS, have a tangible component. And does a digital asset stored on blockchain have a tangible component? Well, it's on a tangible server. Um, I'm assuming it's going to be categorized as a collectible because collectibles have worse tax treatment. So the IRS is going to try, unless it's challenged in court, they're going to
Right.
they're not going to give you as good of a break as a regular capital gain. So the difference
Right.
between a collectible capital gain and a regular capital gain is that the highest tax rate for collectibles is 28%, and the highest tax rate for capital gains is 20%. So you will potentially have a little bit higher tax rate, but it also depends on your income and some other factors. So, if you're
Right.
not sure, I would talk to an accountant about it. So if you're trying to do some tax planning, but I would say that I'd plan on having to pay a little bit more than you would normally pay for a capital gain, but not necessarily as high as you would for your ordinary income.
Sure. And then when you sell them, is that's in under the capital gains, or is that
Yes.
That's
So
okay.
yeah,
So
and it goes with the same time periods of capital gains as well. So if you've
right.
held it for less than a year, it's going to be short-term capital gain, which is your ordinary income rate. If you
Mhm.
hold it for more than a year, you're going to get the preferential long-term capital gain rate, but it's going to be that special collectibles rate, which
Right.
is up to 28%.
So what if I purchased an NFT in February and by December it had quadrupled in value, but I still own it?
As long as you don't sell it, you've got no tax liability.
Okay.
It's not until you sell it. Now, let me make one other interesting thing is that you're often purchasing these things with cryptocurrency. So if you've bought cryptocurrency and then use that to purchase an NFT, you could have a taxable transaction there because anytime you use cryptocurrency, you're supposed to recognize the gain or loss anytime you sell the cryptocurrency. It's going to be interesting to see how that's handled because oftentimes you may not know what the value of the NFT is that you've purchased because
Right.
the price was listed in Ethereum, for example. You could buy something that's listed as 1 Ethereum, and if the market price of Ethereum at that time is $4,200, what I'm thinking you'll probably have to do is say, okay, that's the market value that you're going to have to record $4,200. If I bought Ethereum at a little bit lower rate than that, then it's going to be a capital gain on the use of the Ethereum to purchase the NFT. And then when I sell the NFT, that's another taxable event. So you can see it can get pretty complicated pretty quickly.
Absolutely, absolutely. Good time for someone to reach out to an accountant and
Yeah.
get advice on their specific situation. Just a quick reminder, this is a conversation, not specific individual tax advice for our viewers. We don't want to everything is going to be an individual situation, case by case basis. An accountant is going to be your best bet to make sure that you're in compliance. So next question, do you have any end of year tax strategies that could be considered for those who have invested in NFTs this year?
Yeah. Just like basically anything else. At the end of the year, you should be looking to see different things when you hold assets that have increased or decreased in value that will create some sort of taxable event if you sell them. So if you have taxable gains that you might want to offset and you have some NFTs that have gone down in value, you could sell those to basically offset that income that you've had. And I mentioned this with cryptocurrency, and it applies to NFTs too. There's not a wash sale rule for crypto for NFTs, meaning with stocks, for example, you can't sell something to lock in a loss and then immediately buy it back. You have to
Okay.
wait 30 days or that loss is disallowed. That rule doesn't exist for NFTs or cryptocurrency. So you could potentially say, okay, I have $20,000 in gains that I need to offset for this year. I have this one NFT that's gone down a few $1,000s. I'm going to go ahead and sell it, and then I'm going to purchase it right back. And I'll lock in that gain when I sell it. And now when I purchase it again, I have that lower basis that I purchased it at. So it could be a helpful thing to look at what your overall portfolio looks like, and if it makes sense to maybe cash out some of your assets, such as NFTs, to help offset capital gains you may have if those have gone down in value.
Very good. All right. By the way, thank you, Ellen, for that question. And now Robin has a question. How do I know the current value of my NFT?
So there are markets for these things. A lot of NFTs have multiple copies. So the way I view it is that it's kind of like prints for an artist. If an artist has a work they put out there, they could make 150 prints of it. The same thing happens with NFTs. There are many cases, works out there with 10 copies, 150 copies, 800 copies, and these things are bought and sold all the time. And you can see on these platforms how much they've been bought and sold for. So I can look and see, okay, I have this this work from a specific artist. It sold last week for, 3 Ethereum or $12,000. I purchased it for $10,000 or the Ethereum equivalent of $10,000. And, I have a gain an unrealized gain so far of, X amount. So you can look and see on these platforms what these things buy and sell for. That's one of the really interesting things about NFTs. With private art, traditional art, for example, you have two buyers and sellers. They're not going to publish how much they buy and sell necessarily. A lot of people don't want you to know. With NFTs, it's all on the blockchain, so it's all out there. So
Right.
You can see how much these things are bought and sold for, so you know what the market price is.
So for valuing your current portfolio, it's not unlike, you want to check the current value of widget A that I bought over here. You look it up on eBay and see what
That's
they've been
right.
selling for, not what they're listed for, but what they're selling for lately. It's
That's
similar,
exactly right.
similar type
That's
of
right.
situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Because people will list these things for all sorts of things, but
Right.
you want to see what they're actually selling for. Now, obviously, if it's, you can buy one of one artwork, for example, crypto art. That's going to be a little bit more difficult unless you actually go through a process and try to sell it, or see what types of offers you get. Holding an NFT, you can get offers, so you can get some general idea, but a lot of people will put in lowball offers. So if you own a one of one type thing, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. You can look at other one of ones by that artist potentially to see. But anything that has multiple copies, there's generally going to be a pretty easy way to see what's been bought and sold, and you can verify that on the different platforms.
Awesome. Thank you, Robin, for that question. We appreciate it. And if anyone else has any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments below. So are there any sort of advice that you might have for someone looking to get into the NFT scene or the market, looking for that first NFT? Is there any sort of advice?
My advice would be to, do a lot of research before you just go out and buy something. I made that mistake of, the very first NFT I bought is probably the worst one I ever bought. And I was just excited. I was like, oh, this looks super cool. I'll probably never sell that NFT because I do still think it's super cool. So it has utility for me. I get enjoyment out of keeping it. But if you're looking into doing it as an investment and to try to make money, you want to do as much research as possible before you just jump right in and start buying things. Because it is a very volatile market. Things are up and down. I think just like the stock market in general, NFTs are probably going to be around for a long time and are probably going to go up in the long term. But you want to do your research before you research different artists, different platforms that you like, get into some of these Discord channels, follow some of these people on Twitter, and spend many hours researching it before you just jump right in.
Right. Excellent. Gary, unless you have any other great tips, advice, things to look out for, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up for today.
All right. Sorry for the power outage. They're doing construction next door. And of course, it happened to be right in the middle of our webinar. So sorry to those watching out there.
No worries. Again, we really appreciate your time, and we're looking forward to next week when we talked about the NCAA's name, image, and likeness rule changes, and this is opening up a whole lot of new income opportunities for student athletes across the country, and maybe some things to look out for, some advice for those collegiate athletes who might be looking at partnering with someone to sell shirts, or how can we make sure they stay out of trouble with both the NCAA and the IRS. So again, I thank you for your time, and I invite everyone to join us next week right here on Facebook Live on the 1-800-Accountants Facebook page. So everyone have a great Wednesday, and Gary, we'll see you next week.
Awesome. Thanks, Travis.
You bet. Thank you.